Thank you, folks. Hi, and thank you for joining me this morning. Just before we start, I want to apologize for my very thick Greek accent. In the most likely when you don't understand something I say, don't worry, there's a Q&A at the end, as well as you can just grab me when I step down. You can ask me any question in case you didn't understand something. So, today we're going to talk about user acquisition. I'm going to have some guidelines for user acquisition. I'm going to discuss the different user acquisition channels, common user acquisition mistakes, and if we have time, we're going to discuss just a little bit about user segmentation. When making this presentation, I had to think if I'm going to be talking about experienced app developers or novice app developers. So in a way, I constructed my speech today. I'm going to talk mostly about novice app developers, and then the last section, the common user acquisition mistakes, are mistakes that we've seen great and very big games in the industry that they've made. So, to start off, you need to set a goal for your app, and you need to know, you need to make your goal specific, you need to make your goal measurable, you need to make your goal achievable, realistic, and time frame. And what I mean about that is having a goal just, okay, I want to get a zillion downloads from my app, simply won't do it. Basically, user acquisition is like a trip. You need to go where you're going in order to know how you're going to get there. So when setting your goals, you have to take many factors into consideration. Is it a new app? Is it an old app? Are you a first-time app publisher? Are you an experienced app publisher? What genre are you? When are you gonna promote your app? Seasonality effects takes into place. There are many factors, and that's why I have these five I think are the most important to begin with, and then of course there's always many more that can affect the decision determining your goal. So first off, your goal needs to be specific and your goal needs to be measurable. Otherwise, if you don't have a measurable goal, you don't know exactly what you're doing, if you're successful or if you are not successful. And to do so, you need to take into consideration what type of app do you have. Do you have an app that uses one in-app purchases? Do you monetize your app with subscription, or do you monetize your app with ads? These are stuff you need when you decide your goals. Your goal needs to be realistic. You cannot have the expectation when you're a new app developer to have like 1 million downloads in the first week, and then, but at the same time, if you're an experienced app developer, maybe 1 million downloads during the first week is something actually it's a failure for your app. So you need to know, depending on your budget, your constraints, your app, and the seasonality, again, you have to make a goal that it's realistic. You need to have a specific time frame for your app. It's important that you know how you progress towards your goal, and usually what I advise my advertisers is use the zoom in and zoom out method. Basically have a long-term goal, and then in between have different benchmarks that you want to reach, so you can know how far off or how far over your goal you are. Finally, you need to segment your target and your audience. By segmenting your app user, you always have great results, you have greater engagement, higher conversion rates, and higher revenue. When targeting usually new user, you can have simple targeting like age, sex, geo, language, or you can have more advanced with social segmentation, where basically you segment users depending what they like, the groups they follow, and the content they usually interact with. We're going to discuss about this more later on. So now that you finally defined what you're looking for, define the performance, define your goals, you know who you want to target, you know when you're going to target. Most of the times, if you are a novice app developer, you're probably wrong. You need to be agile. The best way to know if your goals are right and if you have set the right time frame and all the rest I discussed previously, you need to promote your campaign, and then you need to optimize based on the results you see. So basically, you need to be agile. Don't be fixated on the goals you set originally. Don't be fixated with your campaign performance. You do need to be patient. You do need to stop the campaign performance right away, but at the same time, you need to be able to see that maybe this is not working out for you, and maybe you need a different strategy, maybe you need different goals or a different time frame, and maybe you need to adjust your budgets. So although it's important to take everything into consideration and make a decision about what you're looking for and what you do, you need to be true and honest to yourself and your app and be able to change that if it's not working out. Now that we discussed your target, I'm just going to briefly discuss about different paid tactics for user acquisitions. The first off, you pay to boost your app ranking. This is usually great if you want to increase your organic traffic with a very high cost. You pay to increase the visibility of your app in the App Store. It works great for new apps, especially considering there are like many apps out there that have been existing for a very long time, and it helps you with increasing your ranking in the App Store. You get a lot of organic installs which have the best quality. Paid ads in social media, they have a great exposure. Many people see them, but at the same time, social media right now, it's very, very competitive landscape. There are many social media platforms, so you need to be able to address different platforms, and basically you have to engage with all the people that follow your page and follow all the social media out there. Now, retargeting campaigns. Retargeting campaigns have been actually very popular for the past 2 years. We see more and more companies specialized in retargeting campaigns, and many of the big players have, especially the last 2 years, have started really engaging in retargeting campaigns. So retargeting campaigns, basically, we target users that have clicked on your ad, and they've been to the App Store, but in the end, they didn't download your app. They just left the App Store and went back. So basically, what we do is we do specialized ads for these people, helping them download your app, because we know people that have clicked on your ad have more chances than downloading your app than someone who hasn't clicked on your app. Advertising through ad agencies and ad networks, this is something we specialize in Minimob as an ad agency. It's affordable, it's very low barrier to entry, it's performance-based most of the time. There are many ways you can pay: CPI, CPE, CPA, with point-style events. Sometimes you can do eCPM or CPC campaigns. So you have many options there. It's a great way. Most of the big players also use ad agencies to work with, so everyone from a first-time app developer to a big app developer all use advertising ad networks. But at the same time, you need someone experienced, because in the performance industry there's a lot of ad fraud, and more often you see a lot of cases of big companies that performing ad fraud. Like quite recently, a few months ago, Google removed the apps from a big Chinese ad network. And finally, in terms of paid tactics, we have the demand-side platforms, also known as DSP, also known as programmatic advertising or RTB bidding. Basically, this is an automated auction process that buys ads through the bidding system. Basically, publishers have made their inventory available to various DSPs, and then the advertisers bid on every ad automatically, and the highest bidder wins. All right, so in terms of organic tactics for user acquisition, we start off with social media and influencer marketing. Right now we live in the social media world, and social media is now the king of maybe digital advertising for not just for apps, but for a lot of other products and companies. It has amazing results, but it's really, really competitive, and it doesn't work for everyone. It's really difficult, and you need to be genuine, and you need to be creative, and you need to stand out, and more often than not, it's very difficult to do so. What's very interesting with, actually last week I was in Las Vegas, and that I was discussing with a big app developer. They use a lot of influencer marketing, and especially for smaller apps, you can do revenue share with some of the influencers. So basically you have zero cost to begin with when promoting your app. But at the same time, in the future, if that influencer brings you revenue, you have to split your revenue with them. So that's a cheap way and free way to get great results, but at the same time, you gain something for free, but you're gonna have to sell something from your future. App Store optimization, SEO. Actually, one of the sponsors, like LabCave, is specializing in that. I think we're going to have a speech later on today. It helps you promote your app through the App Store by adding keywords in your name and description of the app. So when a user searches the App Store, they can find your app higher ranked than other apps. And then again, it's very competitive and very difficult to. And that's why LabCave is great at that. And finally, we have the search engine optimization. So basically, if you have a gaming app, and I see that often, you create websites discussing the app, discussing hints, discussing walkthroughs, explaining to the players how they play the game, what they can do, and all this information you can give out for your app. And at the same time, you have to do great SEO optimization for your website, and at the same time having ads of your app on the website, so users can go there and find out more about your app and then download your app. Okay, great. So common UA mistakes. This is actually one of the most interesting parts for me from this speech today, because these are things that I've seen very big companies, mistakes very big companies have made in this with hundreds of thousands of dollars monthly budgets. So lack of communication is number one for me. Basically, more and more often I see big companies having big budgets and then not talking enough to their account managers on the other side, or not sharing the information on with their account managers to promote the campaigns. There's actually one really big company which is located in Seattle, I won't say the name, that actually doesn't share with the account managers what they're looking for when they are trying to download for the users, in terms of quality factors. So basically the account managers are in the blind. They think that's a good way to prevent fraud, but at the same time, your account manager cannot work with you to promote your app and give you quality if he doesn't know what he's looking for. In other cases, I see account managers setting like weekly reports, which is not enough, because they're like 168 hours in a week, and having a report sent back to you every 160 hours simply won't do it in a campaign that's basically live for the entire 160 hours in a week. So you need to talk to your account managers you have, you need to share with them the information you have, if its campaign is doing well, if it's not, the campaign is doing well, if there is fraud, if there is no fraud, anything that can help the account manager is always helpful. Not testing new sources and new channels. This is a big one actually, because I know everyone in their job, when they're working for a big app developer or a small one, they're looking for performance, and they want to show their bosses that they're doing great, and they're bringing the numbers, they're bringing new users, and bringing revenue and all that. But at the same time, when you spend 100% of your budget on one source, you are missing out. You're definitely missing out on something else that's out there. And an industry like mobile advertising that's shifting all the time, because it's relatively new and it's very competitive. If you spend your entire budget on one source, you're definitely going to miss out of the next new thing. And that's why I always advise my advertisers, keep 90% on what works for you, and leave a 10% to try anything, a new source, a new channel, a new sub-source, any crazy idea that you might have think something you've tried, or something that you tried in the past that didn't work. Maybe try it again, because you never know. And I don't ask them to give that budget to me, the extra 10%. Try it with someone else. But you have to try new things. And at the same time, if you're too dependent on one source, and something happens to that one source, one advertising channel, then you're in for a biggie. For example, Facebook crashed a few weeks ago, so people that focused only on Facebook had two issues. I've seen many advertisers finding a sub-source and spending all their money, and then the sub-source decides they don't want to promote their app because there's another app that's more profitable for them, and you see their ad revenues going down. So always keep a part of your budget on the side for testing. Focusing on user acquisition and not retention, this is another big one. Stats, according to one report I read online, that it can actually cost you 4 to 10 times more to acquire a new user than to keep an actual user. So I know that everyone is focused with increase their apps, and with everyone usually has investors, or they're in the stock market and need to show growth and growth and growth, and increasing the installs and all that. But by focusing just on that and neglecting retention, it's a very, for me, it's like one of the big mistakes I've seen advertisers do. And finally, having the users not taking into advantage the current user data that you have. Basically keeping the same user segmentation that you have from before you acquire the user. Because like when you get users in your app, you get a lot of new data you didn't have before, and you have to utilize and use everything you have in your power to know and to target the users and to increase their intention and to increase the engagement, and to basically create more revenue. Okay, so I think I have time, so just talk a little bit more about user segmentation for apps. I think this, like I mentioned earlier, this is one of the biggest mistakes I've seen big advertisers make sometimes, and small advertisers not using the data they have at their disposal. So geographic locations, this is very simple. This is actually one of the most common ones. Basically, targeting a user depending on where they are. Of course, I added there because I want to mention that the more specific and the smaller the geographic location is, the more successful you can be. Customer actions, basically you segregate your users depending their actions. If a user just downloads your app, then you can have them to a new customer segment, so you can send a push notification, welcome to your app, and ask them to engage with your app. The actions, you can be anything you can think of. They can be after they have cleared the level of the game. You can send a push notification, congratulating on something you have achieved, or they've unlocked something, an emblem or anything like that. Customer interactions, basically this is users that have opened, they're using your app and they stopped an action and never finished it. That could be a level. It is more often with commercial apps where they have baskets, or for example, if they look at your in-app in-app purchases, they look at your in-app purchase, but they never made the purchase, so you can send them a push notification to actually finish the buy, or you can send them a discount. This actually, I was talking to someone last week with hundreds of millions of downloads, and he told me that they do that a lot. If they see a user opening their app and not buying something from an in-app purchase, they send them a discount, and that way 60% of the time it always works because the user is already interested in the in-app purchase. Buying behaviors. You can basically break your users depending on their behavior. You see if they spend $20, they can have like, or if you spend $50, or if they reach like $100 of your app, you can basically segmenting your buy behaviors and send them push notifications and engage them more into buying, buy more custom add-ons from your app. Frequency of app use, I think this is pretty straightforward. Basically, you send push notifications to users depending how frequently you use your app, if it's daily, a few times a week, weekly or monthly, so that way you try to use the engagement of your app. And finally, based on timeline, you basically segregate the user depending how long ago they download your app and how long ago they first interact with your app. And yeah. This is basically it. So in conclusion, set your goals, know your market, target the audience, be creative, and be agile. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was great. I mean, personally, that last one, that number 6, the timeline one, is for me, ironically, the single most important one for my career. When I basically revealed that one when I was working on the original mobile deck for 3, the mobile operator in the UK, I saw that showed me the most powerful connection in terms of segmenting cohorts for identifying new users, how to keep users, retain users. It literally is absolutely marvelous. Mapping people from the first point they encounter you by the number of days is incredibly effective. Definitely not to be underestimated. Does anyone have a quick question for Loukas? There's a question over here. I'll just bring the mic.
Hi, thank you. What % of the budget do you see that people are spending on re-engagement now, and why do you think it's going up?
Well, actually, more and more people spend a big percentage of their budget on re-engagements. It actually depends per client basis. Like, I can't give you a percentage because I have like so many different clients, and you have to take into consideration the difference of apps and the seasonality. Because we work with gaming apps, but we also work with all kinds of apps. So During the summer months, for example, we see a lot of people spending their budget on travel apps, and during like September, October until the Christmas, we see a lot of buying e-commerce apps. So I can't give you a definite number. I can tell you for sure every single one of our advertisers have asked us about it. If that, I don't know if that covers your question, but yeah.
Cool. Unfortunately,
there are companies actually that do just that and nothing else, because it's like that big of a part right now in the industry.